And welcome into SportsZone All Access here on this Monday, September the 2nd, and it's actually Tuesday, September the 2nd. Threw me off because Labor Day, we didn't have a show.
True.
And so this is where I think our numbers will get thrown off because this is our 21st show ever.
I was just going to say.
But now we don't have we can't just go back and go, oh, this is our fourth week doing it, so it's got to be 21.
Right.
This is where we're going to get thrown off.
Got to subtract 1.
Yeah, it already threw me off the first line of the show. So, yeah, we could be in trouble for our number counting thing. But
I think we can do it.
For now, 21st show here on KLOL Plus. A lot to talk about. Lot to unpack from last week. We're going to start with college. We've got high school as well. So much on the docket. Let's see how much we get through in 23 minutes. We may not get through it all, which is fine. Then we'll just push it off to Wednesday. Let's start off with the South Dakota State Jackrabbits. SDSU big time win. Sacramento State's a good team, and they came in with this super hype that they're going to have a great season and try to get to FBS, and they spent millions of dollars on their roster, and I'd be disappointed to hear if that's all true because they didn't look very good, and specifically SDSU's defense dominated Sacramento State. They really had only one drive the entire game, and that drive was a drop touchdown pass in the fourth quarter. Other than that, they really didn't do anything the entire game.
It was pretty slow. It was pretty slow, and it cracks me up thinking about teams like Sacramento State that really flex, for lack of a better word, the amount of money that they spend on their roster, because those usually are the teams that end up underperforming. And we saw that against South Dakota State. And that's not to say that South Dakota State had a fantastic game either, but obviously it was lengths better than Sac State.
Yeah, I mean, first downs 28-7, total rushing yards 240-24. That is literally 10 times more rushing yards. Passing yards 190-107. They netted just 131 yards. And on paper, you look at that and go, wow, they blew them out.
Right.
But, Sacramento State dropped that wide open touchdown in the fourth quarter that could have made this a 7-point game.
Right.
South Dakota State was not perfect and did make mistakes, specifically offensively, in the red zone.
I felt like deja vu, Grant. I won't even lie, because I was so excited. College football's back. We're watching all that all day long, right? You have it in your ear, even when you're shooting games. And I'm standing there watching SDSU stall in the red zone over and over and over again. And that was something I had seen pretty much all day with offenses across the country. And so I was like, what is going on with all of these teams? They seem to figure it out a little bit more towards the back end of the first half. The third quarter was kind of more of the same in terms of it was completely scoreless. Neither team scored. Right. And they were kind of just turning the ball over on downs nonstop. But they showed senses of finding a rhythm, which is always promising.
And we heard how the game still was in control. That was because of the defense. The defense was really good, and Coach Dan Jackson talked about that after the game.
Proud of the defensive line, and even in the secondary, they challenged us on a ton of deep passes. And I know they hit one of them, but for the most part, we were in position. And I think when you practice and prepare the right way, you earn the right to play with confidence.
It's easy to play football when you got a defense like that lets up 3 points. And, you would love for them to only let up 3 points every game. I know we have a chance every single game, no matter who we play, with our defense.
And it's rightfully so that they think that they have that chance. 5 first downs, not via penalty. 1 rushing, 4 passing. I mean, they just completely dominated them. They held them to 1 yard per rush. It was an impressive showing for the defense. The offense left me wanting more, but there were flashes, right? There was a couple of times where you went, why can't they just do this every time? And if they do, they'll figure it out. And again, one thing I've pointed out 100 times on this show, they have a lot of talent. It doesn't mean they're going to walk in week 1 and be their best. The defense was. Give credit to the defense. They looked really good. The offense has some learning, and I think they'll do that.
Well, and Coach Jackson said it all preseason. Defense wins championships. So their offense, in a sense, is very lucky that the defense came and showed out the way that they did on Saturday. Because when you have a defense like that, you can afford some wiggle room. You can afford to make some of the mistakes that SDSU's offense did on Saturday and still come out with a win. And wins are hard to come by these days. And so a win is a win, and that's what we saw.
Yeah, and you got to take your wins when you can get them. And for USD, they played a really talented Iowa State team down in Ames, Iowa, and it was a pretty good start for USD, right? They drove down the field, got a touchdown right away. Had a good start, had it 7-7, got behind a little bit, then had another really good drive, ended in an interception, and that just seemed like the end of it. And Rocco Beck, by the way, quarterback for Iowa State, he's really good. There was a lot of things I liked from USD, none of them on the defensive side. The Iowa State offense has talent, but, man, they just picked apart this Coyote defense.
It was a steamroll, truthfully. And we talked last week about kind of adjusting coming from across the pond, and they look to have to do no adjusting in that game. And for all we know, they were jet lagged and struggling a little bit, but certainly could not tell on those offensive possessions. They were just all over the place.
Yeah, they were. 28 first downs to 11 first downs. They only had 2 passing completions. They rushed for 5 yards a carry. They had 529 total yards of offense. We knew USD was replacing a lot, right? Mm-hmm. 3 star graduate players that went on to graduate, 3 stars that went into the transfer portal. We knew that defense was moving a lot. I still don't think I expected this kind of showing, right? The line was 17.5. Even the bettors didn't think that it was going to be this kind of showing. So tough showing for USD. Offense showed some things, and when you look down and you break down, the offensive line played pretty well. Bauman didn't get sacked once.
Right.
And this is from a team that they knew were going to pass because they were trailing. So I was impressed in that, his pocket awareness. I was impressed with how well he played considering. The problem is they just were outmanned at a lot of positions, and Iowa State came out and hit him in the mouth right away, too.
Well, and we literally just talked about it with SDSU, but the script is flipped here, right? When you have a really strong defense, you can afford to make those mistakes on offense. That was not the case here. The defense was completely picked apart by Iowa State. When you're able to run the ball that much in a game, it says a lot. And their defense just could not take it.
No, they couldn't. And then, to go with it, we were listening to Coach Johansson today. He said in the final 8, in the middle 8, final 4 minutes of the second quarter, first 4 minutes of the third quarter, he's like, we were looking to go, grab a score at the end of the half, grab one to start the half, and get ourselves back into this. And then they didn't. And then Kyle Conrady hit a 63-yard field goal, and you go, okay, what a kick. And that kind of just really took the wind out of their sail a little bit. And unfortunately, I'm not saying that kick was what ended it for them,
right?
But it was just kind of the nail in the coffin of how good of a first half. 27 first half points. I mean, they were lights out, and then they turned around and scored 28 in the second half too. And this was one of those games where I think Iowa State is being underdone as the 22, and they've moved up. We know that, but I think they were being underrated as the 22nd best team in the country. They look like they got it figured out.
I truthfully was the most impressed with their offense. And obviously that reflects on the scoreboard, but their ability, and like you said before, there has been quite a few transitions in USD's defense. So we knew going into this game that USD might not look in the tip-top shape that in comparison to Iowa State. But, man, they did them in and from the jump. And it says a lot about a team when you're able to continue going even when you have such a strong lead. I mean, they, like you said, 27 points in the first half, but then they came out in the second half with no mercy. They said, well, sorry, we're not done. If you're going to let us play this game, we're going to play it all night long.
Well, and part of that was the big chunk plays. I mean, they got a 60-yard pass on the first play of the game. They just, and that was something that Coach Johansson talked about was last year in the secondary, he said 8,000 snaps of experience at USD.
Holy.
0 experience for starting snaps at USD this year. So that's something to think about. They have some growing pains. They'll figure it out. They have Lamar this week. SDSU's got Montana State. We'll talk plenty more about the Bobcats matchup and the Lamar USD matchup, all that coming up later in the week. But for now, we're going to step aside. We'll talk about some other college football games with Augustana and then the DWU-DSU rivalry when we come back to Sports Zone All Access. Welcome back to Sports Zone All Access. Grant Sweeter, Kelsey Dennehy here on this Tuesday. I got it right, September the 2nd. I think another thing that threw me off when we started the show was I was like, it's not August. I got to catch myself on that too, because we started our show at the beginning of August. So every show we've ever done is in the month of August.
I do like when the month starts on Monday, though. That makes it a lot easier just in terms of planning purposes. Also, is my second, I just realized this right now, my officially second month at Kello.
This is right.
Hooray.
That is right. Today, to the day almost.
Yeah, to the day, yesterday.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, glad to have you here. Glad to be talking about more football. Go figure. College football, we continue on with that conversation. Augustana, quite the win that they got over Missouri Western. One that at times maybe they didn't look like they were good enough to win it. And they got themselves up by 4 points. We're going for a field goal to try to make it 7. The field goal is blocked, turns into a Missouri Western touchdown. Augie has to score with 10 seconds left. Gunnar Hensley to Cody Oswald. Gunnar Hensley was really good in this game. He was the preseason South Player of the Year to watch, and he showed it. He threw for 430 yards, 3 touchdowns, was sacked once, no interceptions, led to him being named Offensive Player of the Week. And yet this whole game was just quite the event that happened. And Kelsey was at the first half for it. She missed the kind of fiery second half.
I know. I had to head to Brookings, but the first half definitely did not give a full picture of what the game actually ended up looking like. A lot of lack of discipline, truthfully, on both sides.
Yeah.
I believe Augie alone had 7 penalties, and 3 or 4 of them were personal. I believe.
Let's see. I'm looking that up.
Something along those lines. Something to where the stoppages of the game were happening very frequently. And it was a 50-minute first quarter. It was a long first quarter, but it was because the flags were being thrown all over the place. And so at first glance, that first quarter was worrisome, especially because Missouri Western got off to a hot start. And then to see all of those different penalties, it was interesting. They kind of pulled it together in the second quarter, and that I think was a good segue for them into the second half and what transpired.
Yeah, Augustana, 7 penalties, 95 yards. Missouri Western actually had more penalties, but only 71 yards. You know, and that first half was not good for Augustana. They scored just 9 points, came right out the gate, got themselves a safety, got themselves a touchdown, and they lead 9-6. And it was just weird scores, by the way.
It was
missed
weird
extra
scores.
Points, had a safety. It just threw off the full flow of the game. But then Augustana goes and scores 21 points in the second half, specifically 14 in the fourth quarter. And as we mentioned, the duo of Gunnar Hensley and Isaiah Huber is going to be one to watch. I knew Huber was going to have a huge role, 207 yards receiving, 14 catches, and a touchdown. I mean, he was simply insane. So this offense can move it, and it took them a whole first half to get into the rhythm and then score 21 points in the second half. That's a 42-point per game average. So, like I said, liked what I saw in the second half. They only rushed for 79 yards, which is very un-Augustana-like.
Right.
But, you know, it was a quirky game, and I'm intrigued to see what Augustana will look like next week. They have Jamestown at home on Saturday. Just because it didn't seem like they had a whole lot of rhythm to their team at times.
It's funny you say that, because that was going to be my next kind of talking point is you saw glimmers of just how dangerous that duo can be in the first half. But I think it got overshadowed by the amount of stoppages, the amount of penalties. There were a couple moments where us on the sidelines shooting the game would be like, oh, okay, here we go. And then nothing happened. So I think kind of having that second half to settle in, get their sea legs to some extent, I think it'll be a lot easier for them going forward to have that strong start.
Yeah, turning to NAIA now, and Dakota Wesleyan played Dakota State. This is the first play of the season. Kickoff return, Stephen Christian, 95 yards on the kickoff return. And then it was quite the first quarter, honestly. Dakota State comes back with a touchdown, makes it 7-7. Dakota Wesleyan answers, makes it 13-7. They missed an extra point, by the way, too. Another weird scoring game. Mm-hmm. And then there were only 2 more scores the entire rest of the game. A 30-yard touchdown run by Dakota State in the third and a field goal in the fourth. And 8 minutes left, Dakota Wesleyan hits a field goal, takes the lead. Dakota State had a chance with 30 seconds left for a 19-yard field goal, and it doinked off the left upright. So for Dakota State, they were that close to winning the game, and they set a new record. The new record is that defensively, they gave up -2 rushing yards and 64 total yards of offense. Those are both school records. Unfortunately, they lost. That's a tough pill to swallow, losing your rivalry game, giving up just 64 yards of total offense.
That is really rough. And you mentioned the word quirky before. This is a quirky football game. Very interesting for sure. I don't even know what to think because
I would say you look a little lost for words at the moment. When I laid
just
out those
watching these highlights
for you.
back and then processing what the actual statistics were, it kind of just all is like, what just happened?
Yeah, I mean, Dakota Wesleyan, 1.3 yards per play. 49 total plays is all they ran in the game.
Holy smokes.
64 yards of offense. They had 66 yards passing. They averaged 0.1 yards lost on every carry. So Dakota State's defense is for real.
Right.
Offense left hanging there a little bit, and Dakota Wesleyan wins the rivalry game. And that's a way to, if you've ever gutted out a win,
right?
That would be one right there. Finding a way to come away with that victory. Well, we're going to talk high school football and wrap up our show when we come back. You're watching SportsZone All Access. Welcome back to SportsZone All Access as we do our final part of today's show, and we're going to dive right into it because there's a lot to talk about, and we're a little short on time. Don't worry. We've got 3 more shows this week. We'll talk plenty more high school football, but let's run through some of the top headlines in high school football this past week. Lincoln cruised past Rapid City Stevens. Man, did they look good. 4 first-quarter touchdowns, a 5th touchdown 1 minute into the second quarter. Lincoln was lights out. That offense can move the football, and we saw it.
Back like they never left is very true statement to Lincoln this past week. It was fun to watch them just kind of be able to get creative, especially towards the end of the game. They have that lead and kind of just get to do whatever they want, and it's great. It's great practice for their offense when they play some more challenging defenses, but also just to rack up the points. It's a great confidence booster to begin the season.
Yeah, it is. You talk about a great confidence booster. O'Gorman, this was a thriller over Harrisburg. They won 25-24. A lot of crazy things. This is a punt block for a touchdown, so we can start there, right? That's kind of a unique score. Then you have a nice run here. Later we have a strip sack for a touchdown. We have a couple of diving plays. Our set of highlights shot by our photographer was well done by Ash. But this game was crazy. And O'Gorman scores in the last 2 minutes to knock off Harrisburg by a point.
She was on the move for this game,
Yeah.
and you can tell on that last one. She was trying to beat the sideline from knocking her down.
Yeah.
The game was moving pretty quick, so it was a great game. And like you said before, a confidence booster for O'Gorman going into week 2, and having the ability to kind of keep it rolling.
This is the one I don't have a big takeaway from because they both played really well and they both made mistakes too, right? There's there's that conversation to be made where these two teams could play to a very similar game with more mistakes, less mistakes later in the year. But yeah, just a great game. Great week one game. I think that is where we should leave that conversation. Turning to 9-man now, this was a surprising one. This was a top-ranked matchup. It was 1 versus 3, and Elkton Lake Benton and this guy right here, Colt Beck. This guy's a stud. They put up 43 on Viborg Hurley and just beat the brakes off them. And impressive showing there for the Elks, who came out swinging, ready to go in their second game of the year. They
certainly came out swinging, and you don't expect such a dominant win out of a ranked matchup, but like we've said so far, this is the first couple games that these teams are playing, so the rankings are adjusting a little bit, and we're kind of starting to see the progression of these teams and what they may actually look like throughout the span of the season. I think this game was a great example of that.
Elkton Lake Benton made a statement.
Yeah.
Though. Right. This is
exactly.
Viborg Hurley won by 50 over Canastota the week before, and then Elkton turns around and beats them by 43.
Exactly.
Impressive win for the Elks. Let's just start there. Talk about another really impressive win. Hamlin and Hanson. This was number 2 versus number 5. These are two teams that I have my eye on. They're going to be really good. Hamlin wins by a touchdown, 29-23. Great game. Really good game. It was an early contest out there in Alexandria, and again, this could be a preview of 2 playoff teams we see down the road.
And this was a definitely more back and forth type of game, which in my opinion are the best. I love those types of games just because you get to see both offenses kind of do their thing in their own regard. And obviously the outcome is one team winning and one team losing, but it just makes for an exciting 4 quarters of football.
Yeah, absolutely. And some other things worth mentioning. One that I got to bring up, Wagner beating Winner. That's number 1 Winner, the defending state champs. Got knocked off by Wagner. Give some credit there. There'll be a new number 1 there. The rankings come out today at 5 o'clock. So look for those on KELOLAND.com. And before we wrap up today's show, let's talk about what you can see coming up tonight on KELOLAND Sports. Northern State gearing up for their first game. Yeah, they didn't play a week 0 or week 1 game or however the word verbiage is. They did not play last week, so their first game is an NSIC contest on Saturday when they play USF. They're getting ready for that with a completely new-looking team. We'll also hear from SDSU and USD. We talked with them in their press conferences today. That's coming up later as well. And high school volleyball continues in the state of South Dakota tonight as well. Well, thanks for tuning in to SportsZone All Access, and have a good day.